to that? Because I think that's really important, especially for young people, to actually do that self-assessment and find that passion. Do you have any advice?
I think that many kids and many grown-ups do figure out over time what their passions are. And sometimes we let I don't think it's that hard. I think what happens, though, sometimes is that we let our intellectual selves overrule those passions. And so that's what needs to be guarded against. Kids are very good about knowing what their passions are.
I love that, because I think I've seen you describe this way, that you've always maintained that sense of wonder. I think that's what kids have, but we lose it somehow along the way.
Yes, everybody, it's a gift if you can keep your childlike sense of wonder. And it helps with creativity, it helps to have fun. You laugh more and play more if you keep that childlike sense of wonder. And he said, let's go on a walk. And we went on a 2-hour walk in Central Park in New York City. And the conclusion of that was this, he said, this actually sounds like a really good idea to me. But it sounds like it would be a better idea for somebody who didn't already have a good job. And he convinced me to think about it for 48 hours before making a final decision. And so I went away and was trying to find the right framework in which to make that kind of big decision. And I'd already talked to my wife about this, and she was very supportive and said, look, you can count me in 100%, whatever you want to do. It's true, she had married this kind of fairly stable guy and a stable career path, and now he wanted to go do this crazy thing, but she was 100% supportive. So it really was a decision that I had to make for myself. And the framework I found, which made the decision incredibly easy, was what I called, which only a nerd would call, a regret minimization framework. So I wanted to project myself forward to age 80 and say, okay, now I'm looking back on my life. I want to have minimized the number of regrets I have. And I knew that when I was 80, I was not going to regret having tried this. I was not going to regret having trying to participate in this thing called the internet that I thought was going to be a really big deal. I knew that if I failed, I wouldn't regret that. But I knew the one thing I might regret is not ever having tried. And I knew that that would haunt me every day. And so when I thought about it that way, it was an incredibly easy decision. If you can project yourself out to age 80 and sort of think, what will I think at that time? It gets you away from some of the daily pieces of confusion. I left this Wall Street firm in the middle of the year. When you do that, you walk away from your annual bonus. And that's the kind of thing that in the short term can confuse you. But if you think about the long term, then you can really make good life decisions that you won't regret later. These 3 ideas, customer centricity, long-term thinking, and a passion for invention, those go together. That's kind of the Amazon cocktail. That's how we do it. And by the way, we have a lot of fun doing it that way.
That long-term thinking especially is what I find so powerful, because you have been known to be somebody who is going to plant seeds and just wait. How do you deal with the pressure of, say, Wall Street, or you have a dot-com crash? I've never seen you panic. You stay the course and you sort of stick to your script. How do you do that, and how do you advise us to sort of internalize that as well as a strategy?
Well, I think that if you're straightforward and clear about the way that you're going to operate, then you can operate in whatever way you choose. And we don't even take a position on whether our way is the right way. We just claim it's our way. But Warren Buffett has a great saying along these lines. He says, you can hold a ballet, and that can be successful. And you can hold a rock concert, and that can be successful. Just don't hold a ballet and advertise it as a rock concert. And so you need to be clear with all of your stakeholders with, are you holding a ballet or are you holding a rock concert? And then people get to self-select in. Once you are looking at the odds in a realistic way, it's very important for entrepreneurs to be realistic. And so if you believe on that first day while you're writing the business plan that there's a 70% chance that the whole thing will fail, and then that kind of relieves the pressure of self-doubt. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't have any doubt about whether we're going to fail. That's the likely outcome. And it just is. And to pretend that it's not will lead you to do strange and unnatural things. So and what you do with those early investment dollars, so if you have $300,000 and then you have $1 million, what you do with those early precious capital resources is you go about systematically trying to eliminate risk. So you pick whatever you think the biggest problems are, and you try to eliminate them one at a time. And that's how small companies get a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, until finally, at a certain stage, you reach a transition where the company has more control over its future destiny. We still have a tremendous amount of hard work ahead of us, but we have all of the assets in place now. We have eliminated the necessity for the luck that a startup company requires. And now, our future is in our own hands as a team and as a company. We have so many smart people. We have so many customers who treat us so well. And we have the right kind of culture that obsesses over the customer. If there's one reason we have done better than most of our peers in the internet space, over the last 6 years, it is because we have focused like a laser on customer experience, and that really does matter. I think in any business, it certainly matters online, where word of mouth is so very, very powerful. If you make a customer unhappy, they won't tell 5 friends, they'll tell 5,000 friends. So we are at a point now where we have all of the things we need to build an important and lasting company. And if we don't, it will be shame on us. The stress primarily comes from not taking action over something that you can have some control over. So if I find that some particular thing is causing me to have stress, that's a warning flag for me. What it means is there's something that I haven't completely identified, perhaps in my conscious mind, that is bothering me, and I haven't yet taken any action on it. I find as soon as I identify it and make the first phone call or send off the first email message or whatever it is that we're going to do to start to address that situation, even if it's not solved, the mere fact that we're addressing it dramatically reduces any stress that might come from it. So stress comes from ignoring things that you shouldn't be ignoring.
And I want to do a better job. We keep on fight. We keep on change ourselves. People, when they finish the job, if they make the mistake, if they fail, if they always complain the others, this guy will never come back. If the guy only check himself, yeah, something wrong with me here, something wrong with me there, this guy has a hope.
Code for Alibaba success. Everybody is keep your dream alive because it might come true someday. This is what the secret code is.
In our company, we never talk you're successful or not because we think there are 86 years, next 86 years, any chance that you will. So that's why we say, don't talk about you're successful. Years later, we talk about it. Dream of the internet. Believe this thing is going to change the world. I believe this thing will be good, big. But whether Alibaba, whether Jack Ma and his team can be successful, I don't know. Somebody will be successful, but not working very hard. So I borrowed $2,000 from my friends and families and relatives together.
I think the 7 years ago when we set up the Alibaba company, it was very, very difficult to find the talents, people to believe in the idea. And the second, we've been put advertising on the newspaper and going, asking friends to join us. So it's just a normal people. Time they were so talented or so great. We have a dream, we believe the idea, we believe the mission, and we started. Believe the mission, believe we can change the future.
It was so difficult, year 2002 or 2001. There's only one group of people that stay with me. That's my colleagues. And people say, Jack, you don't have to pay me for 2 years. I will still stay the company. Only when you believe your employees are talents, they are talented people. Look at your employees. Develop them. When they are developed, your company will be developed. Why we are so successful when we are 20s, we become millionaire? What happened? Internet can happen. They have no jobs. So they say, well, let's come here. Competitors, every time when I look at them, I always admire. 最好的 plan， 但是你自己不要丢掉你自己的方向感。多年来坚持的这些，今天我要告诉大家，很多人听话听了一半。我在哈佛说 plan， 我没有说 we never plan。我们的所有的公司，其他人是有很好的 plan。听了never plan， 他们也不 plan， 不行。还有人要 plan， 定死没有机会。你变化了，也许你还有机会。了不起的时代，有的时候活动是政治家要干的。所以我们觉得，假设阿里能够在这个社会的进步过程中变得更为现实，自己能干是最关键，自己能做好。You have to contact the consumers yourself. You have to sell yourself, serve yourself. This is a real business. Otherwise, it's just a workshop. And we're changing that. And I feel proud. And we are honored. How can you do this trust? How can you, treat this trust well?
Well, you could start by reading my book. But no. I think that the challenge for a place like Korea, which I think people are very aware of, so I don't think I'm telling you anything that you do not already know, but once you are at the frontier, once you are a developed country like the U.S. or Japan, progress at this point in Korea will come from doing new things. There are maybe still some things that can be copied from the U.S. It's actually not that much, and so it's a very different development model going forward, and it's in some ways much more challenging because when you're not at the frontier, there is a straightforward formula. The formula is you copy things that worked, you don't copy things that didn't work, so you can actually skip some steps, and this is the formula in the entire developing world. In the developed world, the formula, the anti-formula is you have to do new things, and this is quite a big challenge in all these countries. But I think welcome to the club. You're in the same boat as the U.S. Well, there's always a temptation. There's this expression in English: the grass is always greener on the other side of the hill, and so there's always a temptation to think that it would be so much easier if you were transported to California or Silicon Valley. And I think there are definitely some advantages Silicon Valley has. You have sort of a lot of people working on it. There's some experience and there's an ecosystem. But there are all these ways it can also be counterproductive. If you start a startup in Silicon Valley, it's extremely expensive to hire people. It's very, very competitive. The office space, all the infrastructure is actually at this point very, very stretched. The network effects that you have in Silicon Valley can all go in reverse, and because everybody's always talking to everybody else, you can get these dynamics similar to the ones I described in business school, where you end up with crowd-like, lemming-like behavior, and it's very hard for people to think on their own. So I think, so I certainly do think that you could build very successful companies in Korea just as you could in Silicon Valley. There definitely are all these things one wants to think through very, very carefully. I think I think failure is always a big problem, and it's even in a place like California, when you fail, it's damaging to the people involved. They're psychologically damaged by failure. It often is hard to recover from failure, and so it's not just the society. It's always often much more of an internal thing where it's quite hard, and you have to somehow be resilient and keep going. I always think people blame the venture capitalists a little bit too much. I'm on the investor side, and there's always this tendency to say there aren't enough investors, and if we had more capital, the problems would be solved. I often think if you just had more startups, the capital would follow very naturally. So I would not blame the capital. There are all these cultural things that that are very complicated to know how to change, that are probably very important. But I think I think a big part of what's worked in Silicon Valley is that when you have a history of success, that sets an example for other people. And so in Silicon Valley, you now have had decades of success, and they're role models. People don't follow them precisely, but there sort of is a sense that people can build great companies. And I think Korea has had a number of successful tech companies over the last decade or so. So it's not as though nothing has worked and there are no role models at all. So I think there is a pattern that's worked, and I think this is what inspires so many more people to try it. So I think it's, even though there are challenges, I don't think they're insurmountable.
TV 있을까요?
Again, very broad, very sweeping question. I think that I do think there's something about the tracking in our educational system that I think has gotten too extreme. I can't speak about the system that much in Korea, but I think it's it's in many ways maybe it's more extreme than even the U.S. But I think even the U.S. it's gotten very, very tracked, very focused on these things, and there is something very odd about a society where the only year of your life that matters is your 18th year. And that's when you take tests or you get into colleges, and that's when your whole life gets determined by what you do at age 18. And life does not end at age 18. It goes on much longer. One of my friends who got into Yale University, one of the sort of elite universities in the U.S., the dean welcomed the 18-year-old freshman and said, "Congratulations, you're in Yale. You're set for life." So we always focus on the people who lose the competitions of getting into these top universities, but I think they're often bad even for the winners. Like, what sort of an attitude is that? We should be expecting more of our most talented people, and if we tell our most talented people that they're set for life when they've gotten into the right university, they are likely to do so much less than they otherwise would have. One of the other expressions is, the Rhodes Scholarship is a super prestigious scholarship in the U.S. Where you study in Britain for something like 32 people get it a year. There's this expression that all Rhodes scholars had a great future in their past. And so because the day they got the Rhodes Scholar, people said they would have a tremendous future ahead of them. And Bill Clinton actually did become president after getting a Rhodes Scholarship, but he was the exception. So many of them did so little with these scholarships afterwards, and it was like an invitation to coast. It was an invitation to not work as hard anymore because you were told that you had won this thing and you were set. And so I think we need to think of education as not a preparation for college, but a preparation for life. And we need to think of our life as not consisting of our 18th year, but as consisting of, hopefully 100 or more years that we should be thinking very hard how to make the most of.
A game of service like that, when it's complicated, what you have to do is minimize your glitches and crawl out of them very rapidly in a way where the customers trust you. And our people are good at that, and they get better and better, and they're trying to get ahead by being good at the service, not by hiring some politician as a consultant. Yeah, some of our competitors do that kind of stuff, but we're trying to slog our way up by doing the work right. When I was a lawyer, there was a saying I always used: the best business getter any lawyer ever has is the work that's already on his desk. And that's the basic ethos of our software business. If we just keep doing it right, I don't think we have to worry about the future.
Other people tap dance to work. What's the secret of that?
You find your passion. You're lucky in life when you find it. And you can't guarantee you're going to find it in your first job out. But I always tell college students that come out, I say, take the job that you would take if you were independently wealthy. You're going to do well at it.
The world is a great movie to watch, but you don't want to sleepwalk through life. The important thing to do is to look for the job you would take if you didn't need a job. And life is wonderful then. I mean, you jump out of bed in the morning because you're really looking forward to the day. I have, for over 60 years, been able to tap dance to work just because I'm doing what I love doing, and I just feel very, very lucky. Okay, class dismissed.